Let's get to it. From Hollywood to Colorado politics, allegations of sexual assault are dominating headlines again this week. Details are unfolding related to the multiple reports against State Representative Steve Lepsock and House Speaker Crisanta Duran, her initial handling of the claims. Meanwhile, State Representative Paul Rosenthal is also under fire following recent claims of him inappropriately touching a campaign field organizer in 2012. Patty, just watching the morning news today, I saw a graphic of 4 different state representatives, state lawmakers that had some sort of complaint working right now. Or is this the tip of the iceberg?
Yes, it is. But where has everyone been? This has been common for decades. We know women have complained about it for a long time. Gay guys complaining about it, which is coming up now, is a little newer, but not that much newer. But why it has really taken off now is interesting. Is it because women feel empowered because we had our first major political party candidate who was female, but whose husband 20 years ago arguably did far, far worse than most of the things we're hearing now? So I'm glad people are paying attention. I wish people could discriminate a little more between what's true sex assault, what's true sex harassment, what's discrimination, and what's just tasteless and stupid, which appears to be most of what our legislators are doing most of the time.
Craig, we have seen calls for the Attorney General to get involved because some people are saying lawmakers shouldn't police lawmakers. We've heard calls for an independent investigation arm. What do you think should be the appropriate way of handling the growing number of complaints?
Well, it all depends on the facts of the case. We do need to distinguish who committed what. And where do you turn? You turn to the law, the criminal law and the civil law. There are certain rules around a workplace that implicate civil law, but just the Al Franken thing. I heard so many people say, that was a sex assault when he put his tongue in her mouth and gave her an unwanted kiss. Well, I'm sorry, that's not a sex assault. And when he touched her breasts, and it appears he did that over the Kevlar, not clear whether or not it was close, but not in any event, that's not a sex assault, that's unlawful sexual contact. Now, when you get to Harvey Weinstein, you're talking about actual sexual assault. So I think we have to have a ranking, a creep factor ranking, and I put it together. Harvey Weinstein at the top, Louis C.K. right beneath him. Joe Biden gives me the creeps. It might not be a crime, but the way he touches really young girls, Kevin Spacey is way up there. Bill Clinton, who kind of got this started and got a pass, Patty referenced it. George H.W. Bush seems to have a problem, too. Roy Moore has to be on the list, although some of those allegations are falling apart. Al Franken, not good. Bill O'Reilly, and then maybe Donald Trump toward the bottom of it. And the state runner is Steve Lepsock, but he's getting a lot of cover with all these new allegations. And again, he might have been inappropriate, but he did not do anything criminal, and that's the way he defended himself. So we need to separate what's really bad conduct from what's inappropriate.
Eric, one of the other factors besides the long and seemingly growing list that Craig went over, the different people who are getting complaints filed against them, is Speaker Duran is under fire of how she handled it. Now, even Representative Winter has come out and said, no, she went by the book, but by the book and the right way to do it can sometimes be two different things. Do you think Speaker Duran has an ongoing issue?
No, I don't. I mean, she has a current issue, and I think her issue is testimony to the fact that these mores are changing so fast. We're in a cultural moment right now, and that cultural moment was different from what it was 3 months, 6 months, or a year ago when the Faith Winter thing, I think after Sine Die of the previous a year and a half ago, after that session when the Faith Winter incident occurred. Does the manner in which Crisanta Duran handled it then look bad now? Yes, it does. At the time, when it was all based on the wishes of the complainant, in this case Representative Winter, it looks like the Speaker adhered to those wishes. So I don't think, of all the people who want to be on the hot seat, I'm not convinced Crisanta Duran should be at the top of that list. Craig gave his list. It's a good list. I hope it's I trust it's a dynamic list and that this was done in pencil and not in pen, because it seems to change with the news cycle, every time your phone buzzes these days, it's with a news alert of some new person, whether that be locally or whether that be nationally. I really think this is a cultural moment in which some lives are going to be ruined, and some of those appropriately ruined for outrageous and atrocious past conduct. Patty hit it dead on in terms of doing more to distinguish, not lumping it all together. Much of it is very bad. Some of it is tasteless and stupid, which is probably the moniker of our legislature, but some of it is just tasteless and stupid, which is bad enough, but it shouldn't be lumped together with the stuff that is truly criminal. And then lastly, I just note we had an election a year ago last week, and the two candidates were named Trump and Clinton. And yes, it was a different Clinton, in some ways a victim in her own right. But when your candidates are named Trump and Clinton, sexual harassment is definitely on the radar screen.
Pam, before the show started, we were looking forward to your points about this, because you, from everyone at the table, you have experience as a state lawmaker. You've been in the midst of it, and I realize that we're not talking about the same players right now, two totally different players. But what should be the appropriate response? What needs to happen from the headlines we've seen this week?
Well, you know, I think you've got to keep it in context. First of all, what Speaker Duran did was entirely appropriate. She got a report about a situation. The victim came to her and said, consistent with the rules of the legislature, I don't want to file a formal complaint now. I don't want to proceed. I want you to be aware of this. With that as a beginning, Speaker Duran didn't have the right to deny, Representative Lebsack a chairmanship if his seniority had warranted it, and in terms of how the other appointments were made, because she'd gotten a complaint and the victim said, I don't want to proceed, I'm done with it, let's move on. So she went about the business of running the legislature, which is her job. So and this is one of the things that concerns me about all of this, is when the one representative raised an issue about the speaker ought to resign or she ought to be sanctioned or investigated for doing what the victim asked her to do, consistent with the rules of the legislature. The problem is you're going to start trivializing all of this if people think you're only doing it to score political points. And that's what the attack on Speaker Duran looks like. Not condoning Lebsack's behavior, it's inappropriate, but Patty also raises a good point. If viewers think that some of these incidents that have been described are the first time these things have happened in the history of the state legislature, they've missed the point for many, many years. A lot of this behavior has gone on where both men and women have been the aggressors, and men and women have been the victims, including elected officials and lobbyists and interns. And so you can talk to anybody who has served in the body over the last 30 years, 40 years, and I'm sure everybody will be able to recount something they heard about. Having firsthand knowledge or firsthand proof is a separate thing, but the rumors swirl and abound there. And we all know about relationships between legislators and lobbyists. So, we got to quit thinking that we're living in some sort of ideal world where these things don't happen. They do. But the bottom line is the conduct is inappropriate, but now there are rules and there are procedures in place to deal with it, and hopefully the legislature will do that.